So now we're going to do our Jonathan Code segments. And so let's talk about what we've done in the past and what this segment's about. And so we've done a single table. You've gone out and done an exercise on creating your own table on your own. And we did a lecture where you create a couple of different tables and then you create a relationship between the two. Remember all that?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to put it to practice.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and share your screen? And what we're going to do is, you know what a black book is?
I know.
You don't? Okay. So back in the early days before software and mobile phones were around, the way that you kept your contacts was in an address book, a physical book. Okay. I'm talking about like with pages in it.
Wasn't it on one of those, like, it's not called a Rolex, it's called like a...
No, it's not a Rolodex. It's an actual, like, a book. I don't have one with me, but it's an actual, like, a little mini book. And the little mini book, well, you know what? Go ahead and open up Chrome and let's look for a black book, or look for definition of black book. I like the way that keyboard sounds. Is that a new keyboard?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
List of secret contacts or names of people liable to be punished.
So yeah, I mean, they called it that, but it was jokingly, but yeah, so I guess it started originally as a way that mobsters would keep their contacts, and these are people that they would contact to, I guess, perform hits.
It's like a hit list.
Robberies. Who knows what this book had, right? But eventually it evolved to a book where you would just keep addresses. And a lot of guys, they had a black book, and it was a book, a little black book, probably like this size. And it had names of girls with their phone numbers. These were like, I don't know, maybe booty calls. I don't know. But that's what it came out to be. So in the essence of keeping the theme of address, since you've been working on address database, we're going to create another database called the Black Book. And we're going to go ahead and do this. Let me add one more criteria to the Black Book. Simple recovery. And so hopefully that you'll remember what that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a database, and it's no different than an address book. So this is going to have the people table, and I think I changed up the structure a little bit. And then we're going to add a second table, which is an address book, and then we're just going to create a relationship between the two. And so go ahead and open up your SQL Server Management Studio. Okay. And talk us through.
So we're just going to make a new one?
Yep. So what's the first task? So you already completed the first task here. I'll even check it off for you. So now you create a database called Black Book.
All right. So we're going to create a new database.
So you always want to stay close to where you're going to create it, right? So yeah. If you see databases, and with Microsoft, the one thing to keep in mind, right-clicking always gives you some kind of context menu.
Here we go.
The Black Book. Now, you remember there's two different recovery models, or there's several different recovery models.
Oh, yeah.
And, one of them is like it keeps your logs forever until you back up your database and then you manually clean them. But there's a simple recovery log. You remember where we did that?
Yes. Recovery model, simple.
That's right. Excellent. Yeah, so this basically cleans up your logs as soon as that transaction is committed and your data is saved on the disk, it pretty much deletes the transaction. So it keeps your logs from getting, growing in size. All right. So what's the next step here?
We're going to make a table called people. It's going to be.
So let's go ahead and click somewhere else.
Here we go.
So, yeah. So inside of tables is where you want to do it.
And then we need a couple different categories here. So we got ID.
All right.
And this is going to be an integer. And no nulls. And this is going to be the primary key, because this is the ID number. And we're going to start with the first name. And this one's going to be a nvarchar. I think we have to type it in.
Yeah, so if you just start typing it in, it'll start to select it. There you go.
And no nulls, because everyone has a name. Middle, initial, value of ID. Here we go.
And then we had a command that we put in there. You remember what that was?
Now, it was UTC.
Get UTC date.
UTC.
Get UTC date.
Date. Cancel your changes.
And then you have to do the open and close parenthesis. There you go.
There we go.
And then we want to do that also for the update.
There we go.
And then remember, we have to do the primary key. The primary key needs two things done to it. So you already set it up as a primary key, but we also have to set it up so that it automatically increments for us.
That's where this comes in.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and save this. And what are we going to save it as?
We'll save it as Black Book People.
Actually, it's just people.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it's already in the Black Book.
Yeah, it's inside the Black Book database.
All right.
All right.
Could have nulls.
Yeah. So line 2, a lot of times people don't have an apartment or anything, no unit, no suite number. So line 2 is just kind of a, hey, here's something extra here's an extra line if you need it.
We do a shift tab, it'll go backwards.
I think that's one of the things you learn about all these keyboard shortcuts when you're programming. Is like you're just trying to move through stuff as quick as possible, and so you end up learning all these keyboard shortcuts. So if you do a tab, it moves you forward to the next field. A shift tab moves you backwards. All right, so we need primary key.
primary key and auto increment.
That's right. And then we need some default dates in the created at and updated at.
Oh, okay.
Don't get nervous while typing, even though the world's watching.
The whole world.
I know you ever noticed that when you're typing, nobody looks at you. You're like, man, I'm just rolling through this thing. It's like, typing with perfect, no errors, nothing. As soon as somebody looks over your shoulder, like you make every single possible mistake in the world, you know?
All right.
All right. So let's and then we have to create a relationship between the two. Remember how to do that?
There was something. Table designer? No.
No.
How do I
Remember,
get?
we have to create a diagram so that we can use a designer, the canvas designer. You can easily drag and drop it.
Yeah. Table designer.
No, we have to use database diagrams.
Database diagrams. Here we go.
So you have to enable it.
Is it working?
Did you right click on it?
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Remember how you have to, so the people table is the parent table, and the address table holds the foreign key, which means a foreign key, remember, just represents a primary key of another table. So remember, you have to grab the primary key and drag it down to the foreign key. And so let's look at this for a second. So this is giving it a name, FK underscore address underscore people, which means that this represents a foreign key in the address table, and the foreign key comes from the primary key of the people table. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the primary key table is the people table, and it's the ID, because that is the primary key on the people, right? And then the foreign key table happens to be the address, and the column that we're looking at is the person ID. And so that's how the whole thing kind of flows. Its primary key becomes a foreign key of another table. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hit OK.
Okay.
And hit OK.
And
And then let's Control S on this whole thing so we could save it. You just call it main. And yeah. This gives you, so you know what I like about this? This is a double-edged sword because it allows you to it gives you a visual on the database design, and it lets you rapidly create these relationships, because if you have to write this code, it actually would take a little bit longer to do. But the double-edged sword on this one is the fact that you're not writing the code, so you're not used to typing all that stuff out. You know, so it's a give and take. You know, it's like you get to do it faster, but you're not learning the code. You know, you're not learning what they call T-SQL, which is a programming language to programming databases. So yeah, you know, it's a give and take. You know, eventually we're going to have to start working with T-SQL a little bit more. But what I wanted to do was, I didn't want to focus so much on databases right now. I wanted to give you the taste of working with databases, because once we get into C# and we start connecting, then as C# begins to solidify in your mind, you can begin to start working with databases a little bit more. And eventually you're going to have to start writing the code, and we're going to get into that. I pretty much have to write code to create tables, to create relationships, to insert records, to update records, all that stuff. I have to write it all by hand every day in my job. And so, this is going to be something that eventually you'll need to do it, but, just take advantage of what's there for what they call RAD, or Rapid Application Development. And that's the whole point of Microsoft giving you these tools to help you move faster along with your development. And so we take advantage of it, but at the same time, let's not forget that there is code that is executing in the background, that's being generated. And so eventually we're going to have to break down to that. So, all right. That was pretty nice, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Coming along pretty well.
Yep.
That concludes our segment of Jonathan Codes.
All right.